La Mandaria means sledgehammer in Spanish, and they named their cigar that. Let's find out if it truly lives up to that name. This is Sticks at the Shore. Hey guys, Rob here from Sticks at the Shore. Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Brand. Today, we got to sit down with Luis and Alex Cuevas of Casa Cuevas Cigars. We are going to find out whether their La Mandaria cigar actually lives up to the name Sledgehammer. Plus, we have a whole bunch of other questions for them. But before that, please like and subscribe to the channel. You guys make this channel work, and without you, I am nothing. So thank you so much. Enjoy the interview. Thank you, everybody, for coming back and watching Sticks at the Shore. I'm Rob, and today I am joined by Alec and Luis Cuevas of Casa Cuevas Cigars. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on. Thank you for taking time. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to kind of sit down and talk with us and sit down and record.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
So how did you guys get involved in tobacco? Like, was it like a passion thing? Was it like by chance? Was it a second dream? Was it a first love? What was it?
So it's
Go ahead.
family oriented. That's great. It's very family oriented. It's something that was passed down generations all the way through, with me being the fifth
Okay.
generation of the brand itself. I would say that it was definitely a first love for my family, for the predecessor, hence why we're doing what we're doing. But it initially started off as crop growing in Cuba, and that progressed into owning a factory in the Dominican Republic, to which it ended up boiling into having a brand here in the States. We've had the brand now for, at this point, 7 years.
Wow.
And yeah, it's been quite some time, but the factory's been around even longer. It's been around for 40 plus. So there's a lot of history to be had there, but realistically speaking, it all comes down to we do what we do because this is what we love. And that kind of it found our family at a very, very early point in time, and it's cool to see
Okay.
it progress all the way to where we are now.
So who started the actual company? Was it your great grandfather?
It was my great grandfather.
Your great grand. Okay, gotcha.
He just
That's a long way. That's a long way back.
yeah, and you know, and I don't want to get it misconstrued, right? So he founded, or he became a tobacco grower because he was a farmer in Spain.
Okay.
Immigrates, leaves Spain in the 19th century, and winds up in a region of Cuba, which is mostly a tobacco crop place. So you're a farmer. What you know how to do is farm, and what's the crop? It's tobacco. So you learn to trade. But the brand itself really has very little to do with the lineage of the family being involved in tobacco. So I don't want people to misconstrue and think they're going to say that this has been around since the 19th century.
Yeah,
I wish we'd be a lot more successful. You know, that would have been super cool, but it's not. However, being involved in tobacco has gone that far back. So, which is kind of cool. And yes, there's interims where I certainly got into it in 2009, and I'm 58. So if you do the math, you realize I was very much a grown man. Father had a gap when he left Cuba and then got back into it, where he had other jobs, another career, another business, and then he went into it. So there's gaps. Alec is about to go to law school starting next week, so he'll be
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So if you take those things in consideration and you interview us 5 years from now, maybe he's done with law school and wants to be back into this. At that point, I was for 3 years, I was out of it, Rob. Now I'm back. You know, maybe I'm saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm doing something else, and he's taking over the entire thing. So I doubt that, because I really, really adore what I do.
That's great to hear.
It's an amazing industry, industry. You know, it is. And notwithstanding, or rather, not only because you're talking about tobacco and the whole romanticism behind it's such a product that's still so artisanal, and it's so made so much like it was 150 years ago. It's really kind of cool. It stopped in time, but then the people you meet, like yourself and patrons. So I think it's pretty unique.
So what was Casa Cuevas? So Casa Cuevas has been a company for 7 years, you said. Something like 7 years. What were you guys doing with the tobacco like back in the day? Were you producing and selling to other companies, or what was?
It was, and it still is. The factory still makes cigars for other companies.
Okay.
So when I was in the '80s, when I was in high school, um, my dad and my uncle started the factory in the Dominican, and then a gentleman by the name of Carlos Tarana, who was a phenom in the industry, he's since passed. Um, he became involved with us. So the first Taranos came out of there. Cigars like Dunhill went through there. Peterson of Dublin went through there.
Hmm.
Um, I'm missing so many brands. When
Yeah.
the boom hit in the '90s, that factory was cranking them out,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
was pretty cool. So since that time, we're very small. We're a very, very small part of the production of my factory. The factory
Yeah.
produces 3 to 4 million cigars a year, and of which we only make a small amount. So the factory's still really what the bread and butter is behind
Yeah.
us. It's the wind beneath or behind our sales, right? Yeah.
Yeah. What town are you guys in? Are you guys like Esteli or
No, Esteliz, Nicaragua. We are in Santiago, Dominican
Santiago,
Republic.
Dominican Republic?
So brands that people would recognize that are major brands that are there. Davidoff is there. Santiago, it's right down the street.
L'Aurora is
Right?
there because I know we're doing a
La
L'Aurora
Aurora is
trip.
in Tamboril, but yes, Santiago.
Yeah.
Somebody's tiny, so yes. Fuentes is there. General
Yeah.
is there. Carrillo is there. Yeah, there's a lot of big boys that are right around there in that area. We're
Yeah.
talking 10, 15 minutes away from where we are. Everybody's kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Intertwined.
yeah, intertwined. Yep.
Yeah. Now, how many guys, how many people do you employ at the factory right now? Like how many people are like working at
In
your
total,
place?
if you look at rollers and then you look at everything else, right? So you got people who devein, people who separate wrapper, people who sort tobacco, people who wet the tobacco, prepare the tobacco. I mean, about 120 people.
Okay.
So it's a mid-sized factory. It's not anything enormous, but it's
Hmm.
about 120, 125. Um, Office staff is only my dad and me when I go there, and a couple
Hmm.
secretaries. So they don't even count. But it's about 120 people. It's 20,000 square foot facility, not enormous.
Wow.
It's
No,
been.
not by
It
any
sounds like
means.
wow, but it's not. It's not. Believe me, it's
Yeah.
not. When you go to these big factories, you're like, wow. Yeah, ours is
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
a factory.
Ours is relatively traditional, honestly.
Yeah.
It's very
Mhm.
rustic in nature, but honestly, that's what we went for. That's what we go for. It's what we have. So
That is
Yeah.
what.
So you guys are still hand rolling everything. You're not machine rolling.
No short fill, no machines. Everything's hand rolled. The clippings that are done at the end of the day, because every day there's a ton of clippings. If people aren't familiar with it, when you make the cigar and you cut it down to size, there's parts that fall off when you're using the
Yeah.
wrapper binder, and they slice off to make the half moon that then becomes the wrapper and the
The
binder.
wrapper.
That's how
Yeah.
it goes. All of that is sold to a separate company, which then uses it to make short fill tobacco. So
Okay.
nothing's wasted, is what I'm trying to say, which is kind of cool.
Of
Also.
course. Yeah. Which is great.
Yeah, yeah, it works.
Now, you guys have a bunch of different lines that come out of, for Casa Cuevas. Uh, Specifically, you have right now a Connecticut, you have a Maduro, there's a Habano. Then you have a couple reserves. You have a natural reserve and a Maduro reserve,
Yeah.
and you have the La Mandaria, right?
Oh, and we have a Corojo, and we have the Cameroon. That's right, your Sangre Nueva as well. So we've expanded over the years, and then different sizes. I mean, 7 years, you got to come up with something every year, kind of, if you
Of
think about
course.
it.
Yeah.
And we sort of have been trying to do that diligently. So
Hmm.
La Mandaria, obviously, which the score is the one I had sent you
Yeah.
previously. That's the first one we've done with a Maduro. Before that, it was an Habano.
Yeah.
And in the future, maybe we'll experiment with one of these as a box press. Just
Okay.
it does change the flavor profile.
we tend to do a little bit of everything. In other words,
Yeah.
it's really
Yeah, I think that's a lot of companies now are trying to, kind of keep tabs on what everybody else is doing and with their blending and their sizes and their, presentations and stuff. And I think just to kind of stay, uh, I don't know, kind of stay fresh in the market, I guess you would say.
definitely.
You
But
have to.
the
the two that I smoked so far, the two that I really, really, really loved so far. So first, I want to talk about your Connecticut. Connecticut's a good one because for me, it's more of like a palate cleanser. So I like to smoke like the darker, heavier stuff. So I like the Maduros. I love San Andreas wrapper. I love the, Brazilian Matafinas. Um, and, when I get fed up with the dark stuff, I like to smoke like a nice easy Connecticut, like to cleanse the palate, just kind of reset taste buds and all that. Now, when I smoked your Connecticut, I was actually really surprised. It was nice and smooth and even. And what I did notice, one of the things I noticed was if it's not blended properly, you kind of get that weird kind of copper penny flavor to a Connecticut, which shows up in a lot of brands.
Yeah.
It's not very it's more noticeable in some brands than other brands.
Right.
But what I noticed with you guys is it didn't show up at all. Like it was smooth, it was easy, it was, creamy, it was, the hay kind of straw flavors, and just I had it with my morning coffee and I absolutely adored it. It was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. That taste that people get from the Connecticut is clearly from the wrapper, right? That's the constant. Everything else is a variable when you're smoking anybody's Connecticut. The one constant is the wrapper. So to offset that, my dad did a masterful job of using a certain tobacco in it that really offsets that bitterness, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I think out of all the cigars that we have, the one that gets the most accolades is that Connecticut.
Yeah. It was absolutely fantastic.
It's crazy because normally that's not what people go for. And yet time and again, not everyone, but a lot of people will sit there and go, hey, I like your line, but man, that Connecticut. It's kind of cool.
It's definitely, we like to say, and hopefully you agree as well, Rob, that it's essentially a smoker's Connecticut. It carries a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel as if, granted, I don't know too much into the weeds of getting all the flavor profilings and whatnot. But from the knowledge that I do have, if I'm not mistaken, it might be a little bit of that sweetness. So it has Colombian filler on the inside, and I believe that offsets that slight bitterness of the Ecuadorian wrapper in particular. But to which it helps tremendously. It just gives you a very, very well balanced cigar.
Yeah, it was a great, like I said, I'm never one to like when I started smoking, it was Connecticut's, and which is where people usually start smoking is with Connecticut's and Connecticut shade and Ecuadorian Connecticut and all that stuff. But I was absolutely pleasantly surprised at how good your Connecticut was. Like I said, when I got that perfect like Connecticut, when you say quote unquote Connecticut flavor profile, like I said, you get that sweetness, you get the hay flavor, the grass flavor, that kind of creaminess was absolutely evident with every puff, and it didn't quit, and there was very minimal pepper flavor in there, and it was just a gorgeous cigar.
Well,
so like I said, that was a pleasant surprise after I started like smoking this stuff for our interview. I was like, wow, this is really good. I said that Connecticut kind of just sneaky became a really favorite of mine.
Yeah, it's for whatever reason, no, it's just a darn good cigar, right? We get a lot of accolades, and then I'm comfortable when we do an event and someone comes up that they do let's say you're doing like a 5-1 or whatever it may be, and then I give the smoker who's purchasing the cigars a Connecticut, and they look at me kind of like, dude, I just bought a bunch of Habanos and Maduros and whatever and Corojos, and I go, listen, it's a smoker's Connecticut, trust me.
Yeah.
Trust me. I go, if you hate it, come back. I'm going to swap it out for something else you like. Okay, so don't worry about. I'll be here all night. We'll be here all night. But please give it a try because I'm that confident in that it's definitely, like my son says, a smoker's Connecticut. I mean, we're very confident with that. It carries enough oomph in it that you're not just blowing air.
Yeah.
Of course,
not cringing at that aftertaste that a lot of Connecticut's give you. So we're pretty blessed. We're pretty blessed.
And then the second one that I really had a really good experience with was the Oscuro, the La Mandaria Oscuro.
Yes.
And is absolutely, so that is like right in my wheelhouse. When I smoke like dark cigars, that literally is exactly what I reach for. When I go to like a shop or when I go to my humidors, it was the palette there was everything you want in a Escudo wrapper with a Maduro cigar. Like you want that cocoa, the sweet cocoa, the earthiness, the leather. You get like that really nice like dried fruit flavors, like the dark cherries and the figs and all that stuff. And it's funny. So the Mandaria comes with a brush foot or like a shag foot, and yeah, brush foot, shag foot, and it was actually the first time I've actually smoked a shag foot. And I did after I smoked it. After I smoked it, I did a lot of research on, and so I'm like a super nerd. I'm a history teacher, so I do a ton of reading. So, like I said, when I before I come on interviews, I do a ton of research on companies and I do a lot of research on the product and all that stuff. And so I started looking into what a shag foot is for, and why people do the shag foot on cigars. And I lit the cigar, and the first, I would say, 3/4 to an inch of that cigar has no wrapper on it. So like you had really that nice um, filler and binder flavor, kind of muted. So it's not really super strong when you first kind of smoke that first 3/4 of an inch of the cigar. But then once you hit that wrapper, you get like this immediate um, tr- uh, like a transfer of flavor, and it brings everything into like focus where it kind of kicks up the flavor profile, and it's absolutely one of the coolest cigars I think I've ever smoked, and I've never had that before. And I think the Shagfoot now is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Truth be told, the reason that, granted, the Shagfoot is a tad bit gimmicky in terms of nature, but you hit everything right on the money.
100%.
Like that is quite literally the same reason for the Mandaria, its other counterpart, the brother of this, the Habano version. We smoke the binder and filler as well, and by the time you catch onto the wrapper, you get that little spice kick that picks up. Another pepper, that almost works as a secondary transition to your smoke. It's very much like nuance, almost like condiments, like adding mustard to your ketchup or hot dog, let's say. But yeah, it's honestly a very, very smooth cigar. And it's funny you mentioned that you're a big fan of Matafina. That was one of the initial plans to have wrapper for this cigar in particular.
Okay.
So we are a big fan of that leaf, but unfortunately we weren't able to find it. And after a few years of really trying to see what we can do in terms of consistency for it, we decided the Mexican dress was most likely the way to go. And sure enough, it was. So we stuck with that. It was quite the delectable smoke.
The original one was supposed to be a Matafina. My dad, who's the one that buys the tobacco from the factory, couldn't, which happened to us now with Alec Sangarenueva in the Cameroon. My father couldn't procure enough to be certain that if we went on in full production, we would have it. So it have to be a limited run, and we wanted to make it a full run. The counterpart to that is we made his the Sangarenuevas. That Cameroon wrapper was supposed to be readily available, and we went all in, and we just got a complete halt on that one. We'll be able to relaunch it next year, but this year we ran out of wrapper and ran out of the cigars. It was done.
With your Cameroon wrapper, is it African Cameroon or is it?
No, it was Ecuadorian Cameroon.
Ecuadorian, okay. Because I know African Cameroon is, kind of getting more rare to find, now on the market. It's a lot of the stuff's coming out of Ecuador now.
And go ahead, please.
Well, beyond consistency and price point, which I think my father was going to follow up with this now, it's also the Fuentes family has a good chunk of that market in particular. So that just adds on double in relation to the consistency factor of it. It's very hard to get. Yet it's delectable though. It's amazing. I'm a sucker for Cameroon. I just am. That's really
I like a good. I really feel like Cameroon sometimes just is underrated. People don't use it a lot, and when somebody uses it in a really good, kind of interesting way, I absolutely go crazy. Like one of my favorites is the Fuente Don Carlos, and it's the African Cameroon wrapper is absolutely blows me away every single time I smoke that cigar.
It does make a difference. Wrapper does make a difference. Huge.
Of course, yeah. Now, I heard a story about La Mandaria, how so there is a story behind La Mandaria, how it got its name. And so I wanted you guys to kind of tell that story because I know the story, but my viewers probably don't know that story.
They probably don't know the story. In 20 in 2018 December, we had purchased the building where we're at now. It's a warehouse.
Yeah.
So we buy it and then we make it to our liking, refurbish it, right?
Yeah.
So January 2019, we move in right after the holidays, and
Yeah.
we get our first shipment. And so your viewers have an idea. When I see a typical warehouse, there's a bay door in the front.
Mhm.
There's an office on the left side, another door, and in the back there's an alleyway with a door.
Yeah.
Right, like a fire escape to the alleyway.
Yeah.
Well, clearly we have our humidor juxtaposed against the back wall, occupies the least amount of space, so you have the rest of the warehouse to work, to packaging, whatnot.
Yeah.
We had alarmed everything, and then one evening, February 19th, I believe, I think it was February 11th. I know it's February for sure, 11th or 19th. It's been so long now that I can forget. Thank God. These individuals, yeah, it was a bad moment. These guys come in with a sledgehammer, which is mandaria. So guys are tying us together, and they broke a hole in the wall in the back in the alleyway, and then cut into the humidor, stepped in, but never opened up the humidor door. And because they didn't open up the alleyway door or the office door or the bay door, no alarms went off, and they wiped us. They took everything. 25,000 cigars, I think. So they took it all. We were in pretty bad shape there emotionally and whatnot. So this guy, as I always say this because I think it was sort of true or not exactly, but pretty damn close. I'm sitting in the corner in the fetal position, sucking my thumb, and he goes, "Hey, let's make some lemonade out of these lemons." The trade show was right around the corner. It was in July. This is February. So he goes, "Let's do a limited run on a cigar that makes fun of what happened to us." La Mandade was born. We were literally, normally it takes us a month or two to blend something because we try 20, 25 blends of something. We were in the factory for just a couple of days and boom. It was like writing Stairway to Heaven. I've heard that was written overnight by Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
It's kind of landed on it. We just landed on it. We go, let's go with it. And off we went. We showed up at the trade show with a sledgehammer. Literally, a sledgehammer is a prop. And the cigar was born, and the limited run turned into, wow, this is really good. So full on production, and here we are.
Now you have two La Mandarias. You have a Habano and an Oscuro.
Now we have the Maduro. They're a few years removed. That's cool. That's all right. But yeah, that is what happened. And if anybody out there is curious and you have the time, if you Google Casa Cuevas break, and you'll find footage on YouTube of the guys breaking in and news footage of me with the new. We went on the local news stations because the idea was to try to keep these guys from selling the cigars easily and readily.
Yeah.
So if you spread the word somehow, then they're stuck with a bunch of stock that they can't just easily move.
Of course,
what I think they did was, what we think they did was take it and then rebrand it as a Cuban cigar, and off you went and sell it off. I mean, come on. We had been in business a little over 2 years at best. We weren't exactly a big known brand, so it isn't like getting a whole bunch of money for a brand that no one knows. So, but if you take off the band and you put Cohiba on it,
of course,
Cohiba, and then some sad sap is going to go, "Oh, well, okay, great. I'll give you $100 for this box," which costs you zero. By the way,
of course. It's funny because we were leaving for our last cruise, and I was just happened to be on half wheel, and some guy was just caught in Miami with, I think they said $1.4 million worth of fake Cuban cigar bands. Like literally, as I was on my way out of the country.
I remember reading that article, and I don't know if you're familiar with all the thefts here in Miami, but it's been us, it's been Gurkha, Aroa, Coop Cigars when they used to be around. Fuentes had an entire truck stolen of Opus X's. Aladino Cigars. I think it's nobody's ever been caught except now, which I have to think it's the same dudes he's part of. I don't know what happened with the story, right? But he got caught with all this contraband. I think there was part of this whole circle where they would just bring them cigars that they would steal from other brands, and then boom. I get the Opus X. You're selling Opus X as Opus X, But some of these other
Yeah.
brands are going, hey, let's just make them Cuban and we're going to make a mint. And
Yeah.
I think that included us.
Yeah. Now, when you guys blend your cigars, do you have like a favorite type of tobacco you like to work with?
Honestly, that's a tough question.
Yeah, I think so.
And that's actually a great question. If we were going off preference point, it would kind of parlay a little bit more into our palates and what we like. But I think I'd say, if anything else, we always have at the very least as a starting point the Habano in terms of wrapper, Ecuadorian Habano
Hmm.
wrapper. That's a little spicy and it's so much more into the medium palate that you are able to get a little bit of that bitterness, some spice as well. And you're also able to play a little bit with the sweetness factor of it once you start adding the binder and filler.
Yeah.
But I don't think we have a real preference point when it comes to what we want to do. We just simply look at our margins. We look at what tobacco we do have consistency wise. And we say, you
Yeah.
know what, it would be amazing to construct something using this type of leaf. To which that's what we more than likely end up doing.
And then
Yeah.
proportions, obviously, right? Your
Yeah.
proportions change. So if you add 80% Ligero from Esteli, it's going to completely be different than a cigar that has 20% Ligero from Esteli
Hmm.
or other tobaccos in it. But no, that's a no one's ever asked that. That's a very good question, my friend. Well done. Yeah, it got
Yeah,
us
I
thinking.
appreciate I appreciate it.
Normally we just
Yeah,
go
you
through
know,
like
like
I've been asked all the other questions a million times. You know the answers, right? Stock answers. This was like, you got me. That's a great
yeah,
question.
no, it's
Well
fun
done.
because there
Well
are
done.
I appreciate it. There are some companies that that I have that are like, yeah, like if you look like at Nick Melillo, like he starts with, obviously, the Connecticut broadleaf, and that's what he prefers to roll everything with is Connecticut broadleaf. There's, certain other tobacco companies that, will prefer to come up with blends where, they always put a little of something in their cigars.
I think if we put a little bit of anything in ours consistently, we always going to have a little bit of Dominican in there as an
Hmm.
homage to the Dominican Republic. It's a Dominican factory.
Yeah.
It's almost a slap in the face to the Dominican factory, not use any Dominican tobacco.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, that said, though, it may be a little bit of sickle, maybe 10%, 15% sickle, and everything else could
Yeah.
be from broadleaf, which we do use
Yeah.
as or Colombian. We've used Peruvian tobacco in one of our blends. Nicaragua for sure, whether it's sickle or ligero,
Yeah.
it's the bodega. So we like to play so that the one staple I think is always going to be some Dominican in there. Always,
Yeah.
always, definitely, definitely.
Now, there are, hundreds upon thousands of different brands of cigars. What do you say would set you guys apart from everybody else?
For one, we have a factory, and if you do your research, um, there are very few brands that have their own factory.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factories that produce a bunch of other brands,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
Very few brands which produce their own. And so as a result, I think what sets us apart is the buck stops with us. Should
Yeah.
something go wrong with construction, I can't point at the factory because you're pointing right at us, right?
Yeah.
Should something go wrong with blending? Well, we're the ones that blend. Should something go wrong with shipping or anything else that goes on the brand? Well, we're the ones that ship. Hell, we
Yeah.
are the janitorial staff at our office. The HR department, billing department complaints. I mean, it's just us, and that follows through even to the factory as well. My father is there, 365 essentially, just about.
Yeah.
As we're shifting now as a company, as an entity, I'm taking over that a lot more. I'll be there again next week. I'm there all the time to try to take
Yeah.
those reins over, which obviously begs the question, what's going to happen with the brand? I
Yeah.
don't know yet. And I'm a week away from figuring this out. And I still haven't figured it out. But it's not going to disappear
At all.
But it's not going to disappear. But
Yeah.
that's what we haven't
There we go.
All right. Oh, there we
You
go.
guys are back. All right.
Good man.
We got you. We got you back.
So I don't know where you lost me, and I don't know if you can splice your recording or whatnot.
Yeah, I'll get it. Yeah, no, I got it. Now collaborations. Have you guys thought about doing collaborations? Have you done collaborations? Because I feel like it's like a lot of companies now are starting to think about collaborating with other companies.
I think it'd be really cool. We haven't done it, and it's something that I given thought just to expand the market for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
I think it'd be a cool thing. There are people in this industry that I have a lot of fondness for, that are just friends who are legit brand owners, have been around a lot longer than I have, whom I really would approach, especially now that we have to pivot a little bit. Because the amount of time I have to spend at the factory. So a collaboration would probably be the easiest way for me to expand something without having to be in Miami all the time to do it, and he's not going to be here. That's a great question, and it's something that yes, we've thought about. Have I done it? Have we done it? The answer is no, not yet.
It's definitely
Now, do you have like brands like off the top of your head that you know you would like to work with?
Well, just in terms of knowing someone whom I respect deeply and I feel comfortable with, someone like Eric Espinosa, would be phenomenal. I like Eric quite a bit. And there's others, but then I'm going to wind up leaving somebody out that I should be mentioning. So I'll leave it at that because Eric's a Miami guy, and I just had dinner with Jack Charania, who's his his head guy here in the United States, and so I think someone like Eric would be cool, and I respect his palate. I respect his business acumen quite a bit. And whenever I've had issues with something business wise, he's the dude that I'll call. Someone like Kaizad, whom I love and respect tremendously, but they're such a monster. They probably wouldn't be open to that. So and we make a lot of their cigars, but that's a different entity altogether. But on the medium big scale, someone like an Eric would be really, really cool because I think it'd be easy to work with, and it'd be kind of neat.
He does a lot with other people. So I mean, I just the other day I just smoked one of his that he did with Black Star Line for Oakland Tobacconist, the maroon, I think it's called the Maroon or the Maroon. It was, and of course it tastes just like an Espinosa because anybody that it's funny when you smoke a cigar, sometimes you can taste just the fingerprints all over the cigar of like the blender or the producer of the cigar. Like I can tell you when I'm smoking an Espinosa cigar only because of the flavor profile in that cigar.
It's do you cook?
I do.
You cook, okay. And I'm sure as you cook, there are certain ingredients that you just kind of like your go-to. You know what I mean? Like a little more garlic in your food. So the recipe calls for 3 garlic cloves. You're putting in 9. That kind of thing, right? I'm giving you an example. It happens to us. There's a certain flavor profile that we fall into. It's kind of hard to get away from that. It's
if it isn't broken, don't fix it.
Yeah, but
well, like I said,
no, sometimes
you got to jump in the deep end of the ocean, and we never seem to do so. We're always treading water, and if you're drowning, you could stand up on the sand, but you're right,
definitely right.
Yeah. So a couple of questions before I throw you my last question. So some easy stuff that I like to know personally. So like, what do your personal humidors look like? Like what do you like to smoke non Cuevas wise?
Okay, not Cuevas wise. I was about to make the joke that if you were to guess, I think it'd be full of Cuevas. I'm a little more eclectic with my palate than my father is. I like to try everything when I can, similar to like going for craft beers. So whenever I get the chance to go out there and pick something up, I will grab it and I'll smoke the hell out of it. So the newest thing I just recently picked up, I'll tell you right now, honestly, I picked up another San Lotano, the Golds, from AJ Fernandez recently. That was a few days ago. And the last call as well, which I haven't smoked in quite some time, actually a few years almost. From that point, there was one in particular that, for what it's worth, I was gone a few days ago on a bachelor's trip for my cousins.
How was Nashville?
Nashville was a blast. I cannot complain. I will say it felt a little bit like home based off the humidity, a little hot. But
Yeah,
that being said, with good people, we had great cigars, even better
yeah.
food. So it was quite the experience. And one of our cousins happens to be living out there at this very moment, and he
Yeah.
brought over a few cigars for the groomsmen and so forth to smoke. So I got to pick his brain. There was one cigar that he gave me without the bands, and I love blind testing. And he says, "Give this a
Mhm.
go." I fell in love with it. So I got to pick his brain, but I guarantee it's something I haven't tried before. Um,
Okay.
I'll pick everything from the wheelhouse. That's my cup of tea, realistically.
Alec is much more just adventurous than I am.
Yeah,
So
that's more me too. I'm pretty much like Alec. I try all kinds of different stuff. I love boutique brands only because it's kind of interesting just to kind of see what's out there, what everybody's kind of blending at that point. And
Oh yeah.
like I said, what which is kind of what draw me to you guys. Like uh I've never heard of you before. I started kind of started talking to Tim, and he's really the guy that kind of lined this all up. And Tim just, like I said, had nothing but good things to say about you guys. So I was like, yeah, heck yeah, I'll get on with these guys.
Tim's a wonderful man.
It's tremendous.
He's a great family man, and he's just yeah. Tim's Tim, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a real special guy, and if he sees this, he knows I mean it from the heart. I'm a little more conservative on that, and then what I wind up doing is I wind up smoking cigars from people that I know. Like Carrillo has always treated me with kindness and almost like a son type of thing, right?
Yeah.
When I see him, he's so kind. So I'll go out of my way. If I see a cigars, I'll smoke that. I don't know anything
Hmm.
about the but their sales rep here, Sosa, I like him so much that I'll
Hmm.
buy Vivas because I like him. Right? You understand? Not that
Yeah.
they're good cigars, don't get me wrong, but I'll do it
Yeah.
because of that. But I don't really kind of delve too much into anybody else's stuff. He does. And he's kind enough with me, my son is, that he'll buy two of whatever and give me one. So then I'll get to smoke
Yeah.
it. But I usually just don't do that. I'm pretty bad about that. If you look at my humidor, there's a lot of Cuevas, a lot. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And as we've expanded as a company, I've got enough to choose from, right? I can choose a couple of Connecticut's. I got
Yeah.
Cameroons to choose from. Well, I used to be able to have Cameroons. I don't have anymore. But I've got Maduros and I've got Habanos. I got different blends and
Yeah.
the Corojo and so forth. So, but yeah, I know it's a bad answer, boring answer, but I'm 58. What do you want?
No, you
What
do
do you
you
want?
do what you got to do.
What you
It's
got to do?
so what did you think of the new Essence by Carrillo?
I liked it, but I like,
Yeah.
one of our brokers is in Arizona, cigar mechanic, and a shout out to Brandon, whom Tim knows very well, by the way. Actually, they're very good friends. So he represents Carrillo as well. And whenever I go out to do my rounds with him, whether Arizona, he does Colorado, etc., the
Yeah.
first thing I do is go, hey, give me something that I haven't smoked before. That's the reason I get to smoke them. So I I enjoy it. I think somebody like Carrillo has really stayed ahead of the curve.
Hmm.
Remember his bread and butter originally was La Gloria Cubana, and
Yeah.
once he sold that, he took a while because they had to think a non-compete or whatnot, and then he came
Yeah.
back. He's always trying to reinvent himself a little bit. So
Yeah.
I like all of his cigars. I think they're very good cigars. I think they're very good cigars. What did you think?
So I actually, under Tim's guidance, I was like, hey, so tell me what you're smoking right now. Like, what's your favorite? And he's like, go try the Essence Maduro from Carrillo. And I was able to find it at one of my local shops and was able to pick up like three or four. Smoked one, absolutely thought it was a really good stick. I haven't been able to find the Sumatra yet. I think there's a Sumatra version as well. I haven't been able to try it yet, but
I haven't tried that. I haven't tried the Sumatra.
it's like everything recently that Korea has been coming out with, like the black, the Encore Black was really good. I enjoyed that a lot, and it was just I feel like Korea, and then he just did the the Circle of Life with West Tampa. Him and Rick came together and did that whole did the whole collaboration cigar, which I thought was really good as well.
Yeah.
Collaborations are really a good way to kind of bring together two blenders' ideas of what a cigar should be.
Hmm.
And going back to it, I think if we did something like that, we would get away from our usual palate.
Yeah,
Right?
of course.
The other
Yeah.
individual is forcing you to try something new, and vice versa, I would argue. So I think it'd be kind of interesting to do that in the future. It'd be kind of cool. Be kind of cool.
Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to it, we'll see what happens, maybe something down the future. But my last question is always the hardest question
Uh-oh.
because I know you guys everybody kind of guards this question a little closer to how much they like to say. So is there anything we can look forward to in the future? Like anything's in the pipeline that you can give away for us right now that we're going to be expecting, that we're looking forward to, something in the next 6 to 10 months?
I would say we did a very short run of the Patrimonio, which is our Corojo. We
Hmm.
did a limited run of those as box pressed.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
it was a one and done, and it was for a private party, and it was done. That cigar continues to resonate. So those who smoked it seem to really, really dig it.
Yeah.
And if people aren't familiar with box press, you potentially everything we start. By the way, we start with a 6x50. That's our starting point.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding
Okay.
what we're using. Right? So it's a
Yeah.
Toro. So our box presses are traditionally 6x48. Well, in order to get a box press, you start off with a round cigar and you smush it into submission. But because
Yeah.
seriously, right? It's
Yeah, of
no,
course.
no,
Yeah.
it gets crushed. But if you put the same amount of tobacco that you normally would between a 48 and a 50, it's what 1/32 of an inch diameter. It's nothing. Literally,
Yeah.
it's 1/32 of an inch. If you sit there and put that same tobacco, and you're going to burst the wrapper. So you've got to play with that blend so that the essence of what you originally intended with that 6x50 is carried
Yeah.
over, but it's going to taste different, right? Well, for
Yeah.
whatever reason, magically or not, that worked out really well, and I think that's going to be our next line. Or you want the really strong one in Maduro? What are you thinking about?
See, we had two different things in
There
mind.
you go.
We've been kind of racking each other's brains on a few different concepts. Especially like, for example, I like the Corona size. I personally am a big fan of smaller vitolas. I feel as if there's a market for them that we personally have not tapped, realistically speaking.
Yeah.
A lot of individuals that have a very short lunch break, and let's say they really want that fruitful cigar, that really good smoker's Connecticut, but they don't
Yeah.
have time to smoke something like a Robusto, or they're
Yeah. Oh,
not
yeah.
smoking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've always wanted to shoot something within the range of getting that, particularly in Corona size, even our Reserve and Naturals, mostly because we have the molds for that, as well as for the Maduro. But what my father's discussing is something that I've genuinely really wanted for a long time. I want a cigar, once again, going out of our wheelhouse, that packs a punch. In Spanish, we would
Yeah.
call it a pecho. Going back to what we like flavor profiling wise, we make very well balanced cigars, so they're full in flavor, but they're not that, in my opinion, full of strength.
Yeah.
Makes them a good smoke. It makes them very, very nice. You're able to actually enjoy it. And once again, it won't kick you in your teeth. But I think personally, it's around that time to release something that really has a lot of oomph to it. However, that also being said, given my father's preference on the cigar I just mentioned right now, is one that I'm also a sucker for religiously as a great smoke. And it's also one that we just don't have out on the market at the moment. And realistically speaking, I think it would do very well. So, only time will tell. We'll see what happens.
We have a few, I believe, I know at the factory I do, but here in Miami we have a few. I'm going to send you a couple of unbanded box press Orojos, which are not in the market. They've been rolled for about 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah.
I'm going to put them in the mail tomorrow for you.
I appreciate that.
And let me
I
know.
always appreciate sticks. Absolutely.
Shoot me a text or whatnot and go, hey
I
man,
love testing cigars.
Perfect.
I always ask, it's funny. I always joke with my guests. I was like, listen, I don't know where my application for test blends went, but it must have got lost in the mail because I was like, I'm always for testing anything.
we'll give that one a go. And you haven't smoked our Patrimonio, which obviously is in full on production. It's one of my favorite in the line.
Yeah.
The Mario Scudo is now taken over. Before that, my sons, but I can't get that, so that's out. But in a close second, like the men's 100-meter race in the Olympics, in a very, very close second,
Yeah.
that Patrimonio. And I'm going to send you. So I'm going to send you the original Patrimonio in a Toro and I'm going to send you that box press so you can compare
Gotcha.
apples to apples. And then you
Yeah.
shoot the text and give me your honest opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
I need that. I need you to tell me when things go wrong or
Yeah.
when things are right. I just don't need someone to tell me constantly, this is great, this is great. And you're going, this is
Yeah.
dog crap, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
it's
serious.
funny. Like I said, one of the things, like I said, I will. I can be brutally honest sometimes, and
Good.
my wife hates it. But unfortunately, it's so you got to be a little nicer with the wives sometimes. But yeah, no, I got you guys.
Please. We'll send that your way tomorrow. I will obviously text you, hey, they're on their way, and you'll get them in a couple of days.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
You're
So,
welcome.
so thank you guys for coming on, taking time out of your busy schedule. I know the first time kind of was a hit and miss, but
It was
we'll,
on us. It was on
Completely
us.
on us.
like
It
I
was on us.
said, nothing but love for you guys. I had a blast, love talking to you guys. Um, Alec, good luck in law school.
Thank you. Thank
Where are
you.
you going?
St. Thomas University.
Okay.
It's local
And
here.
okay, how far away?
Give or take 30 minutes from our home here, shooting
Oh,
up
that's not
north.
bad.
It's
All
not bad
right.
at all.
It's not bad.
It's
Now,
uh,
are you studying anything in particular, or kind of figuring out when you get there?
so how this would normally play out is by the time I get there and I'm gathering my bearings at the very least for the first year, that's when I'm able to start really getting into the weeds of what works within my favor and what I really like. But until I take
Yeah.
those courses on a general basis, I frankly don't know. I'm really excited for it.
By the
All
way,
right.
he's been low key. He got a full ride. So,
Congratulations. That's amazing. That's
yeah,
great.
thank
That's
you.
awesome.
It helps mom and dad too with the
Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does. Yeah. So again, thank you guys for, coming on, spending time with myself and my viewers. And just wanted to say thank you once again.
Thank
And
you.
I can't thank you enough. So appreciate it, guys.
We'll do it again, hopefully.
Absolutely. I'll have to check in with you guys.
You got it, my brother. Be well. Bye, everyone. Thank you.